Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. So it's best to start early, but it's never too late. That's parenting advice for children of all ages, and it involves, quote, marking them for God. What does that mean?
Worldwide minister Bishop Anne Gimenez says now more than ever, it's important for Christian parents to set a godly example for their children. In the last few decades, most kids who've grown up in church don't know much about God or the Bible, but they can tell you all about the latest movie or YouTube video. In the new edition of her book, Marking Your Children for God, Bishop Anne inspires parents to raise children who love and serve God.
Well, some of us get younger and younger. Can you believe this? Japan, Korea, India, and this is the lady who is pastoring a church and writing books, and Anne Gimenez. Good to see you.
Oh, it's so good to be here, Pat. God bless you.
Hey, you're looking younger and more beautiful than ever. What you got going? What's your secret?
Well, more of him. I'll tell you the secret. God, I was very sick last year.
Yeah.
I had a heart issue, and I was in the hospital. They, rapid heartbeat, my heart was 122 beats, and they put me on a drip and to slow it down. However, it was supposed to be monitored. They changed shifts and forgot. They left me on it.
No.
My little assistant came in the room, looked at the monitor. My heart was down to 44 beats, and she screamed and hollered. We out and got the doctor. She said they're about to think they had a wild woman in there speaking in tongues. But they never told me what they did. But my assistant did. She works there. And during that time, God spoke to me when I almost died. This was last May.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to send you around the world again.
Come on.
And I said, God, I don't even think I want to go around the world again.
You're near dead, and he spoke to you?
Yes. And Pat, I just had another birthday. I'm 81 years old, and I'm going around. I said I went to Japan and Korea in October, and now I said, well, that wasn't around the world. That was halfway. So now I'm going to India in a couple of weeks. And when I come back, I'm going to Liberia. And when I get back from that, there's a possibility I'm going to Singapore. I'm running. And, all of it, the secret is faith in what God tells you. Okay. See, I could have said, God, I just don't feel, that couldn't be. And I could be laying home in bed and staying home I go to work every day. I preach every Sunday, either morning or night. And I'm doing every door that God opens for me, I'm taking it. I'm running harder than I've ever run before, and I love it.
81?
Yes. And I'm encouraged, and I get stronger. When I do God's will, I get stronger.
Oh, this is great. Well, let's talk about kids. This is the second edition of your book called Marking Your Children for God. What do you mean marking them? What do you do to them?
Well, Pat, a number of years ago, in fact, this has been the most popular book, the first edition, most popular book that I've ever written. Yeah. It's sold out everywhere that I took it. And God spoke to me one day. He said, you're having future faith for your children. Train up a child in the way he should go, and then when he's older. And he said, you're looking for when they're old, that maybe they'll turn somehow. He said, that's future faith. I want you to have faith right now. You mark them now, train them now, so that when they're older, they will have never strayed away from God.
What does marking them mean? Like with a brand? You're from Texas. I mean, you have a hot iron? And...
Well, I thought this the other day, Pat. Yeah. We are children of God, and He has marked us. Okay. And the way He's marked us, He's put the blood of Jesus on our doorpost, so to speak. Okay. But we mark our children, especially from a young age up, by the way we train them, teach them, but more than anything else, it's the life we live before them. Yeah. As believers, if we're hypocritical, if we say one thing and do one thing in church and live another, children are so perceptive and perceiving, and they will detect hypocrisy quicker than anything else. But I believe that children are trained. I believe in really disciplining a child. You don't have to beat them to death in your anger, but I do believe we need to make an impression on them and teach them what's right and wrong, what's good for them, and also the things of God. I was sick a few years ago. My daughter, we talked about it before on air, my daughter stayed with me in the hospital 3 months, and I was so thankful for her. She said, Mother, they told me every day you would die. She said, but I knew that you had prophetic words that hadn't been fulfilled. Pat, I thank God for a daughter that she said, I saw my mother pray. I've heard her pray. I know what God has said to her. And the doctor said, your mother's going to die today. She said, you don't know my mother. thank God for...
Well, everybody thought you were going to die. We all thought you were going to die.
And here I am, stronger than ever, because God said you're not going to die. You're going around the world again.
My word. Well, you were marked, speaking of marking, as a child yourself. What was your father, mother?
Well, I was not raised in a Christian home.
All right.
I never saw my father in a church until he was in his 70s when he moved here where we had started Rock Church. But my mother's family had gone into Pentecost because her sister had been healed instantly of tuberculosis.
Yeah.
You know, back in the early 1900s, when you had TB, you just died.
That's right.
They took her on a cot to a tent meeting where a woman was preaching. I believe is Maria Woodworth Etter. I believe that's who it was, because not many women back there had miracle ministries. Yeah. My aunt was instantly healed and got up off that cot. Well, we went from being Lutherans to being Pentecost overnight. Okay. And so my mother's family grew up Pentecostal. And when I was about 6 months old, my mother had taken me to church with her younger sister. It was Richie Temple in Houston, Texas. Yeah. Raymond T. Ritchie, a famous evangelist back then. And they were dedicating babies. And my Aunt Ruby said, why don't you take her up? Mother said no, and she grabbed me out of my mother's arms and took me up and dedicated me to the Lord. And after that, as I grew up in childhood, my aunt would come and get me every summer. Listen, aunts and uncles and grandparents, don't ever underestimate your effect on children in the family. She took me to Vacation Bible School. John Hagee, you see on TV now, his father, Bethel Hagee, was the pastor of the little Pentecostal church in Channelview, Texas, that I got saved in as a child. And that marked me for God. We influence children as adults.
This book, ladies and gentlemen, I think you can get it to where books are sold. And we leave you today with Anne Gimenez, pastor of Rock Church.